this is proof that I'm doing it live, but I just can't. It's backwards, so you don't have to look at the video. Hello, my name is Reverend Thomas Coughlin, and I grew up deaf. I was born deaf. My parents are deaf. And I have deaf cousins as well. I grew up in a small town in New York, close to Canada. And I have 3 hearing siblings. 2, now of them, are now interpreters, and one is married to a deaf man. So we're involved in the community. So I went to school in Rochester, New York. You probably heard of the school because of the Rochester method of finger spelling. So when I was 12, my parents sent me to a camp in Buffalo, New York. And 2 weeks was in this camp. And the nuns were mentoring us. And one of the nuns let me know that there was a Catholic school near me. It was for religious studies in the religious environment. And I was thinking about it. I thought I'm going to go to that school. And I was 12 and I decided. For about 9 years, that's how long the school would take. Anyway, I was very interested in religious studies, and I was thinking all day about how important it is for prayer in church, and I was about 16 years old. I became more interested in religion, and one day the nuns at the high school offered me a prayer book. And I read it, and it was about a man who was a monk, and he was for 30 or 40 years. He worked, and I was very interested in that idea of becoming a monk. I continued reading, and I asked if he had more books. It wasn't a prayer book, it was a book about a man's life, and I just was fascinated. I devoured these books. I was fascinated with the subject of becoming a monk. When I was a senior, my parents said I needed to go to Gallaudet University, and I was thinking, I'm just stuck on this idea of becoming a reverend. My parents, no, you can't. They told me no, I couldn't, because I'm deaf and it's hard to communicate, and it would be very problematic if you were a priest in a church. And I thought, they were right. It is hard. It would be hard, and I knew inside that I wanted to try, but everyone was telling me no, and I don't know which way to follow. So I decided to write a letter to different institutions to ask if they would accept me in their program, and many of them said no. And I just kept sending letters, continuously sending letters to see if I could get in anywhere. And I just thought maybe the world's not ready for a deaf priest. And I decided to write a letter where I didn't say anything about me being deaf. I just left it out. I put my high school information, and that one it didn't know I was deaf, and so this particular school we were conversing back and forth, and they were just hoping they would encourage me to go to the program, and they asked me about my background, where am I from, what's the name of my school, and I felt a little stuck because in the title of my school is the word deaf. It's a school for the deaf. So I thought, if I put that word in there, they're going to know that I was deaf. Anyway, I wrote that I'm an All-American deaf boy, and maybe they would miss it. And 1 week later, I got a letter back. I didn't know you were handicapped. We were about to accept you to the program, but now it'll be too hard. They were saying in the letter. They didn't know that I was handicapped. And the last line said, the school principal wants to meet you. So I was reading this, and they wanted to see what my communication skills were like, and we continuously send letters back and forth discussing the issue. They were trying to decide if they should accept me or not. They finally asked me to fly and meet in person. And I was very nervous. It was in the 70s and there was no interpreters. I was really nervous, but I decided I would go anyway. So I arrive at the school and the priest comes up to me and starts, ask me if I knew how to lip read. So we're talking. He wanted me to go into the office and sit and have a conversation with them. So this boy encouraged me. They introduced me to different people in the office. The first thing was like they were confused. They thought that I was deaf, but you understood my question. Yeah, it was an easy question. I flew to New York and I read your lips and you said, "How old are you?" You could understand me? Well, why did we think it was going to be so hard to communicate? They thought, but I, I was trying to explain that lip reading is very hard, and it took me a very long time to learn it, and it's a lot of practice, but it's not a perfect skill. They were so impressed. They thought it was impossible that I could possibly understand them, even though I was deaf. They were worried about me being deaf in the program and how would I ever communicate. But now I understand that they understood that I could lip read. They were so impressed with my skills. And I was nervous, but at the same time, we were on the level playing field now because I could talk to them. So we talked and they asked me questions and I tried to explain the situation of being deaf and how some people don't lip read and some people do, and how it depends on the person and the family, and if they were raised with the oral method of talking and lip reading. Anyway, we had this long conversation, and finally, 1 month later, they accepted me into the program. And I just thought that was my first challenge. Before, my life was easy. I have a deaf family and a deaf community, and we sign all the time. And I graduate, and now I'm in the real world. And I had to fight against discrimination and against the challenges of people perceiving that being deaf is a problem. So I'm very grateful for the school for giving me education and for training me and for helping me with my communication. So I do have to be strong and suffer through it, but I was very stressed. I had no way of communicating with my roommates, and I had no friends, and it was very hard. So the first night, when I got into the dorms, they were asking me my name, and I told them my name. I thought I don't, and I responded. I read this boy's lips, and I responded, but he said, "I don't understand you." He told me he didn't understand me, and I was very shocked and sad by that. I tried very hard to face the challenges of of lip reading and talking with hearing people, and I tried and I failed, and I was, but I wanted to continue. And later I just practiced. I practiced my lip reading and my speaking, and I taught other people the ABCs, maybe some finger spelling. My goal was when I started high school was to enter the seminary. And I wanted when I finished college, my college program, I wanted to go into seminary. The end of the Catholic ministries do a lot of foreign work in the in Bible study and psychology, and I wanted an interpreter in my class. The whole semester there was a test, and I got an F on the test, and I didn't understand what the problem was, and I was reading it. It's a philosophy uses difficult language, and it was hard for me to understand with my my signing background, and I needed some help with the English. People were My professor let me take the test again, and I took it 2 weeks later, and I studied for 2 weeks, and I took the test again, and I passed with a C. I thought, okay, I could just study harder, and I could get better grades. For other people, it was easy to pass, but it took me twice as long to understand the concepts because of the language and because of my communication with other people. And I was very focused. I just needed to catch up. 4 years later, I passed and I graduated. I had my degree, and I was completely shocked. About 35% of students that start a BA don't finish, and I passed. I couldn't believe that I passed. The hearing people, some hearing people studied and failed, and I was deaf and I passed. The first time was hard, and then it was successful was when it was finished. My reading skills, I'm so grateful to my parents for teaching me that. I'm fascinated with reading, and it improved my skills. And I'm successful in life because of that. I can't be successful without reading and without knowing English. It's impossible. So, so I became a Catholic priest, and I was the first deaf Catholic priest in all of America. In Europe, there were a few, but I was the first in America, and I was so proud of my school and encouraged myself to go forward. So that I worked for a Catholic organization, and I traveled around the world, and I presented different lectures, and I gave workshops, and I did that for 4 years. And the last year, I went to many different places. I went to Japan, Philippines, different locations in Asia, and different countries throughout the world. I met many different people. I heard so many different stories about people's struggles and their language struggles in the world and their struggles in general, and I learned so much. They taught me not so much. And everybody has their own struggle for themselves, and I realized being deaf is a struggle as well, and I was successful. And some people told me, "Oh, I can't continue. I'm just not going to be able to do it." And I encouraged them to keep trying. These years that I went to school and I struggled, they flew by. And now I'm moving to Hawaii. A little while ago, a man asked me if I would go, I would help with a program there, set up a program just like the one in New York, but I would set it up in Hawaii, and it was there's a different culture. There's different nationalities, and so I went to Hawaii. Um, so there's different, and the camp that I talked about before in New York, I set up that before, and they ran out of money. So it was about to foreclose, and I worked to collect $1,000 for them, thousands of dollars, and then they decided to. I gave them the money, and they fixed the program, and it was successful, and it did not go bankrupt. So one problem that we had was that there were not a lot of nurses that were there, and I realized that the medical staff was lacking. I thought that is hard. We were running out of money, and I decided to volunteer to be a nurse. And they said, "Oh, sorry, you're deaf." They wouldn't let me do it because I was deaf. And again, I thought, this is another challenge of explaining people that I'm deaf, but I can do anything I want. I sat down with them and I used my lip reading skills and my English skills, and explained to them that their attitude towards me was inappropriate. I am completely capable of working, and they did not want to have a conversation with me. They did not want to consider me working for them because I was deaf. And I encouraged them to sit down, and I'm friendly, I'm not going to bite, and we can talk about this. And finally, they accepted me into the program. It's not easy, and it's very tough to communicate with patients. It's very hard, and I admit that with my hearing aid. But in the medical profession, you need to know so much information. You need background information about medicine, different kinds of medicines you need to study. It was very enjoyable. It's a big challenge, and so I am now certified to be a nurse. And now I'm considering maybe I'll become a doctor. And I thought, community doctor and a priest. It's regardless of what you want to become, it's very important to do exactly what you want to do and face your challenges. People told me no and no, I can't do anything because I'm deaf. But I just continued and I became exactly what I wanted to be. People are always going to tell you can't and you won't and you're not allowed to, but just because I can't hear doesn't mean that I can do it. So you just continue to try. It's not easy, but you have to continue. I met so many people in my travels around the world, and I met a lot of people with low self-esteem. They don't believe in themselves, and most people don't believe in themselves. I'm just not they just think that they're worthless, that they're not worth anything. And that is such an awful thing to think, and it makes me very sad. Jesus told stories about words, faith, and you need to be open. Jesus himself faced a lot of doubt from people, and again, he looked around and said, he told someone that he believed that if he told someone that was unable to walk, if he told them to get up and walk, they would walk. And he told the people that asked him for help to be open to faith and be open your mind. If you have a closed mind and you are not open to new experiences and new challenges, then you will not be successful. The whole world is available to you. Don't limit yourself. Jesus' words were, be open. Don't close the world off. You have to face your challenges every day. Just be open. And all of us need to be open. It's a good lesson for all of us. Thank you.